Hello, everybody. Welcome to KFC SuperCoach TV. I'm Al Payton, and I've got the Phantom with me today to talk KFC SuperCoach leading into round 14, week 3 of the buys, 3 out of 4. And it's starting to get serious now. We've got 6 teams missing, so I think that's going to cause a lot of issues. And then we look ahead, probably, I don't know if we want to look ahead to the week after. It could be even worse, but there's some massive news that we're going to have to talk about. Which may involve James Sicily, but I think there's also been some drama in the lair. Sorry, we're running a tiny bit behind here. Phantom, what's been going on over there? Chaos in SuperCoach.
I'm a bit excited, as you know, Thursday night footy here in Adelaide tonight, kicking off a big round 14 of KFC SuperCoach. I got a little bit excited. I've jumped off the tram, run down Weymouth Street to get in this video with you. Walked into the office, opened up my bag, and my lunch, my soup, has spilt in my entire bag, covered my computer, covered my laptop, covered everything. So it's not a good start to a big buy round in KFC SuperCoach. I was almost going to come and tell you that I'm not playing well enough and that I should not play in the AFL team down in Brisbane up there. But there's no time for the team in SuperCoach. It's all about the individual. So if you're going to pick me, I'm going to play no matter how I'm going. Big week, big weekend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, crazy. And that is, if people haven't seen that, there's some teams news coming out this morning. And that I don't remember seeing that before, where Chris Fagan has spoken to the media and said 2 players, Jack Gunston and Daniel Rich. So I guess they're not going to be in a lot of KFC SuperCoach teams, but came to his office and said, Coach, I don't think we need to be in the team. We're not playing well enough. Send us back to the VFL. So he said that I don't think they actually will play VFL. They're going to get a little mini sort of pre-season, and not sure when they'll be back. They'll be out for a little while. So, pretty unusual, and whether it will have an impact on maybe some other players who might get a game. I mean, Harry Sharp's one that is sitting on a few benches and could be handy in the next couple of weeks.
Indeed, yeah. No time for that selflessness here in the KFC SuperCoach team, I don't think. Brisbane, interesting one. I'm sure we'll talk about him in a little bit. Devon Robertson, one of the guys I went on in the last couple of years, back in the side last week. Hugh McCluggage, we know, will miss a little while. Good score from Devon, we know. I think he set the tackle record or close to it in the VFL a couple of weeks ago. So interesting name to talk about, but plenty others too.
Yeah. So, I mean, he is, I guess, Devon, an option if people need a cheap player to maybe make some cash and make some other moves. There's not a heap of them around, certainly in terms of bubble boys. O'Sheen Mullen was the great white hope, and he's out injured, so he definitely won't be playing. Well, we saw the Geelong team last night anyway, so we know he's not there. So unfortunately, I think about 20 or 30,000 teams have already traded him in, so they're spotted bad luck for them, although I suppose we always knew it was a bit of a risk with Dangerfield and some other guys coming back, whether he would hold his spot. But so that rules him out as a cheapie, and there's not a heap of other options around, but we'll get to that later. I think the number one topic that we have to talk about, Nate has thrown it straight at us, is what to do with James Sicily. So suspended on Tuesday night for 3 matches, but then last night or late yesterday, Hawthorn lodged an appeal. So they're going to try and get Sicily off, which would be, without going into the merits of the actual case itself, for a lot of KFC SuperCoach players, including me, I would be very relieved if he gets off. It would save my buy plans and especially my team in round 15, which is looking in a lot of trouble. But the twist that they threw in was that the appeal is going to be heard on Monday because Hawthorn has the bye. So I guess there's no rush, and they've got Ryan Mansell's appealing as well. So they do that one tonight, which means, people might have wanted to trade Sicily now and get someone in who's playing this week. But, I suppose we'll address that part of it first. Would you potentially still go through with that move if you needed a number this week? Or do you think we just have to wait and see what happens? Because if he gets off, that'd be pretty awful feeling if you've gone and traded him out.
Yeah, it's a hard one. If the ban does stand 3 weeks plus the bye 4 weeks out at this stage of the year, it's probably definitely a trade. We know these elite scorers, we sometimes back them in to make up that ground in the long run, but by the time he returns, it won't really be a long run left for him to make up that ground. So obviously this is the spanner. If he does get off and you've traded him because of that, it's going to sort of backfire a little bit. So again, you could probably, if you can afford to take the hit this week, you don't need him. Again, remember, you don't need to have 20 players. If you're looking at your team, you've got a good core of premiums that might outweigh someone that's got 22 with 4 rookies or so. on your. We'll think about that and talk about that a little bit later. But it's probably a hold now. Assess that on Monday. Trade him again next week. Yes, you're going to miss out on Tom Stewart. Yes, if you're going to Harry Himmelberg, you're not going to probably trade him into the bye next week, round 15, the Giants. That was the cash-making option, 300K almost from Sicily to Himmelberg, who we hope is going to play back for the rest of the year. So that's why you do this week, take the money, almost probably trade into other premiums with that cash. But with the appeal, who knows what's going to happen? We can't sit here and say ban's going to stand or it's going to be overturned. But if you can get together a side, there's probably enough hope, I guess, to hold, and enough other options. You talk about Jordan Ridley, say, coming off the bye next week, 508K, pretty good buying, 4K for SuperCoach tons since the concussion. That could be a move if the ban stands on Monday.
Yeah, I think most people hopefully who have Sicily would have been assuming he's not, we knew he wasn't playing this week anyway because of the bye. So hopefully you've planned to have enough players. And I suppose the one, if you don't have Tom Stewart, he's really the obvious player to get in, and it would be handy to have him before tonight. I think he's had a couple of good scores against the Power in his last couple. But I think, the smart move is to wait. And then there's a lot more options next week, because if you already have Stewart and maybe Jack Sinclair, they're the two who've already had their bye in defence who really stand out. After that, I find it hard to find another defender that I'd be super keen on. I got Jake Lloyd last week, and I definitely wouldn't be recommending him after John Longmire played him on a wing for 3 quarters, and he only really went back into defence when Nick Blakey went off injured. So I'm hoping that doesn't continue. But, I definitely wouldn't be trading him in this week. Luke Ryan's really dropped off the last sort of month or so. Hayden Young's going okay, but it's still sort of more of, I think, around a 95 sort of player. But if you wait until next week, you do have a few more options. And as you said, Jordan Ridley's a really good one at a good price. He's in really good form at the moment. Essendon will have had their bye. And you also have the option, if you have some DPP moves, and a lot of us have a Constable or a Chincotta, or, I've got Jordan Dawson in the midfield. You could trade Sicily out, move them into defence, and then you've got a whole heap of midfielders to pick from. Clayton Oliver, if you haven't got him, and, quite a lot of people trade him out when he got injured. So now's the chance to basically get him back in, because he's the same price almost as Sicily, just like about $5,000 more. Or, there's plenty of other options. Zach Merritt, Rory Laird will be coming off his bye. So, I think that's definitely the way to play it. So, I did, I've been playing around a lot with my team. I'm sure a lot of people have over the last few days, trying to figure out how to do this. Is there a way I could hold him, sit him on the bench for a few weeks and, get in someone like Himmelberg and just play him in that spot? But I just can't figure out a way to make it work. And it's just so much money to have sitting on the bench that for, 3 or 4 weeks, potentially, you can have, another premium in that spot. So I think that is definitely the way to go. And just, the defense I just find quite tricky, because after Sicily, I think Dacos, Stewart and Jordan Dawson are clearly the top 3. Probably I'd throw Sinclair in there at number 4. And then after that, it's really, it's pretty wide open. So if you got a Ridley, if you got a Himmelberg, if you can afford to wait till after the Giants bye, I don't think that's the worst play either. If you just have to try and scramble 18 together next week, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about that next week, but I think a lot of people will be battling to get to 18. And, I'm looking at my team, and I might have 18, but that might include a Marriage at West Coast and a Chesser. There's so if you only have 16, but there's 16 decent players, you might not actually be that far behind. So maybe, it is worth waiting a week, and we get another look at Himmelberg too to make sure he's playing in that defensive role, but he could be the pick of them. I don't mind that. And even this is outside of the times, how desperate things are. Yesterday, I was looking at Elliot Yo's numbers and just what I could maybe do with that money, because he's cheap and he has looked really good the last couple of weeks. So he'll be off the bye again next week. So I just think next week we'll have a lot more options, but I think you'd be in a very luxurious position if you could actually hold him.
Yeah.
That is, until he's back.
Yep, I agree. Elliot Yeo, interesting one. We saw him play fullback on text here early at Adelaide Oval last weekend. Still finished with 30 touches, 12 contested possessions. Again, the price a little bit, $390, same as Himmelberg. Not the values of your Nat Fifes at the other end of the ground, Taron Thomas, maybe, but that's another discussion. Jono, another question.
What if you're in Jono's position? He's got 3 trades. We will have after the buys, I think.
Post-King. Well, we've had a lot of issues pop up this year. We've all copped a bit in KFC SuperCoach. complete team, well, as close as I can.
Mhm.
And that's another thing as well. We all have an idea of what we want our completed teams to look like, but you might not get to that ideal scenario given what you've had to deal with.
Mhm.
It might not have included Harry Himmelberg in your team, Nat Fyfe as your loophole, maybe a cheap Callum Mills. But you got to make do in KFC SuperCoach and adjust along the way. So, Jono, I'm hopefully going to have maybe 4 trades left coming out the other side of the bye with Nat Fyfe as that sort of swing cover on the bench. But yeah, as we discussed there, I think that's probably a hold again for Jono.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely right. The people will be making compromises in terms of who is in their finished team. And like a classic case is someone like a Zach Butters, who's clearly going to be in the top 6 forwards. He might be the number 1 or number 2 forward, but he's not in that many teams. And I don't know how many people can find a way to get to him when he's well over 600 grand and also has that last buy. But then maybe, one thought that did occur to me is if I do, take a risk on trading Sicily to someone like Elliot Yeo. I mean, another guy who's cheaper, I really like the last few weeks. It would be a big call is Nazia Wanganeen Miller at the Saints. 3 scores over 100 in a row with Sinclair moving up the ground a bit. He's sort of taking all the kick-outs. Just, has a beautiful right boot on him, and they're using him more. I think he's had 30 touches the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, every year we see there's a young player, whether it's, a Noah Anderson type last year, LDU, who sort of, bursts out in the second half of the season and comes rattling home. And, pretty hard to pick him at this stage. But if you got one, if that turned out to be him, that'd be a great pick. And he's sort of in that 400K range as well. And then maybe that does free up a bit of cash to try and get a Zach Butters because otherwise I just can't see any way I can get hold of him. So, but I think that's because I'm in a, luxurious, if you can call it that, position of having 10 trades at the moment. A lot of people have less than that. If you've got more than that, you're in a great spot. I'll probably come out with maybe 5 or 6 after the buys, and that will be with, I'll still have Kieran Briggs as R2 and probably Will Ashcroft in my midfield as well. So, it's going to be pretty hard to get, the best 6 scorers in every single position. So, don't stress if you're not going to get all of those players in. Let's have a quick look. Oh, you go.
What about at the other end of the ground, thinking, just touching on Nat Fyfe, there's some cheaper options too. Here. On Taron Thomas, first, we'll talk about him, and then we'll talk about Nat Fyfe. 295K for Taron Thomas, 89 and 112 since returning to the senior side. There's no doubt there's some serious value there. There's no doubt of his talent either. We saw him average 109K for SuperCoach points in a huge finish to 2021. Obviously hasn't had a great 18 months on and off the field. We're talking KFC SuperCoach here. Now, I guess the question is, does he stay in the side and maintain this form after what has been a very interrupted year for many reasons? 295K, if low break even, North Melbourne got the round 15 bye, it doesn't help. But another big score this week, another 3-figure score, then we start almost have to talk about him in your Harry Himmelberg type molds where he becomes a little bit more than a money maker. You're picking Nat Fyfe. I picked Nat Fyfe last week, cover me for the buys, then become my loophole option. We know there's going to be ups and downs with him given the role in that side now, albeit he was very good last week. But Taron Thomas coming into the team, then going through the second half of the year, he could average 95 if all goes well on the field. So that is one to eye up. We're not going to jump on this week. I think you forego that price rise and just let that go. You're going to miss out on him under 300K and just having a look at it for a week. Obviously wait till the buy and then assess. But Nat Fyfe out. Would you jump on this week if you missed out?
I jumped on him last week, and I was glad I did. Yeah, I thought he was great, actually, in that Richmond Freo game. He was at the first centre bounce and played mainly sort of in the middle in the early part of the game, but didn't really get his hands on it too much. Sort of took a little while to warm into it. But once he got into it, he was really instrumental in getting Freo back into the game, kicked an unbelievable goal, and, won a couple of key clearances. So, I really liked the way he moved. The thing that I find difficult is, if I get a him or a Himmelberg, I like the theory of having them on my bench because, especially with DPP, you can swing them around, use them as cover if someone's out injured. But I've never really had enough trades and that to get myself into that position where I have a really good player sitting on my bench as
Yeah.
cover. And I just feel like when it happens, I'm going to leave him on the bench when he scores 95. I'm going to play him when he scores 60. Just creates sort of more headaches than it's worth. And I'd rather just keep the trades. And if someone's actually out injured for a while, I'll just trade him. But you've done this successfully in the past. So what's the strategy and how can you make that work?
Yeah, it's hard. I don't think it's the be all and end all. You get yourself in a hole, as you mentioned, if you do aim or focus on that loophole option. Nat 5 is a little bit different last week. Obviously, got the cash from the Harry Sheasel to Nat 5 trade, which I needed that money. I wasn't going to be able to generate the money any other way to finish my team. So if you are out there, you didn't go Nat 5 last week, you still got Harry Sheasel. As good as Sheasel was, he still spent times in each third of the ground, which we did point to last week. Ratton used him further up the ground because he is very effective already for the Roos forward of centre. So 4 scores of less than 100 now in his past 5 games. As good as he's been, as good as he still can be, I don't think it's going to hurt you trading him out. You're still going to get that cash, which you might not have on the bench, especially if you missed out on a Kieran Briggs type. So I'd still make that move this week. Sheasel to 5. Sheasel get ahead of next week's buy, make some cash, and then start completing your team that way. Again, Nat 5 for me, the end, he's going to hopefully push over to the bench. He's not my target for the loophole option, but I'm hoping to then upgrade in front of him, which then pushes him to the bench. I'm not focusing on that loophole spot this year. Again, so many issues have popped up. I'm not able to. So it's sort of what I can get in front of him. I'm hoping to get something more in front of him. Darcy Cameron, Callum Mills, LDU in my sights in terms of value coming out the other side of their buys, which would push 5. But again, if you've got more trades, if you haven't taken as many hits, then yes, you're going to get frustrated with loopholes sometime if you leave that player on the bench. But you also might get a big score if the fixture works out. You might get that jump, or you might miss out on a player that's a popular player that's a little bit out of form, and you put the E on him on a Friday night, and he scores a 50 or 60. You play your loophole option, you gain 40 or 50 points. So we know there's still not a lot in it, especially in your head-to-head games leading into finals. So it's also not just about getting the big score from your loophole option, but maybe having room to play around with those keepers that are a little bit out of form that no one can trade out.
Yeah, well, I must admit, if I could get him down to my forward bench, he's sort of sitting in the midfield at the moment. I've got Tom Hawkins down there, who I don't think I can get rid of. So he's exactly the classic type of player. Playing on a Thursday night tonight, would love to be able to put the emergency on him. And if he drops a 35 like he has in the last week or two, then you bring on a 5 type. He's obviously pretty hot and cold. And then he's there for injury cover as well. Quick interesting question here from Sean. He's still got Darcy Wilmot. He's been great, hasn't he, the last few weeks? And now with these other lines out, he's probably going to get even more of a run. I mean, he's not a primo. So, if you get a chance to upgrade him, I would. But it's probably not urgent, especially given he's going to at least give you a decent body on field for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that's key. He scored 90 KFC SuperCoach for last points last week against the Hawks. And like you said, he's going to be on the field for the next 2 weeks. So, there's not going to be a massive fluctuation, I don't think, in his price either way. So, Sean, you probably just keep him. Hope he gets a bit more ball, as you mentioned, with Daniel Rich out of the side. And then, maybe he's your move, coming out in round 16, the first non-buy round, to those cheaper options, the Callum Mills, the LDUs or something with a bit of DPP action. But Wilmot could be a really good little addition in the next 2 weeks when many KFC super coaches are struggling for numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's basically my play with Will Ashcroft. I sort of always had in mind to trade him out at some point. It just hasn't happened, and I've still got him there. And the Lions get a couple of games at the Gabba where he usually goes all right. And obviously I'll need him in the next 2 weeks, and then we'll just see how we look after the buys, how I'm going for trades and what I could do with that money. So, no urgency there. Theo on another YouTube question. So great to see people getting on the YouTube channel. Raising Will Phillips, who, if he picked him and kept him, that's actually worked out really well, considering a lot of us had him and jumped off early doors, but saying, would you trade him and Baker? So I wonder if he's got Liam Baker to Stewart and Melican. So I guess Melican is probably the tricky one here. Like, what are we doing with if we are looking for a cheapie this week? I mean, he is an option, but he's like 170 grand, probably not going to score heaps, but he should at least be playing.
Yeah, you might be talking about Oscar Baker potentially.
Oh yeah,
As
true.
well.
Who's he was a sub
Bulldog.
last week, so he's tumbling in price. Good to get rid of him.
Yeah, and Phillips obviously been very good, but you're probably you're getting ahead, Theo, of next week's bye. If you are struggling there a bit, Tom Stewart, we love that. Melican, it's a hard one. There's not a lot out there, but again, trading in 170k guys at this stage of the year, you're getting enough money, you're getting enough value for that downgrade. It's all about your premiums, your complete team at the moment. So if it is getting you enough money to get Tom Stewart, in this case, if it's getting you enough money to get your prime target, then do it. But if you're out there looking for a downgrade just because they're playing, might get you a bit of cash, but not get you where you want to go immediately, then you have to weigh up whether it's worth actually doing it at this stage of the year, because hopefully you're not going to need Melican for long. You want the money, you want your premium in. Your premium count is important. Again, like we said at the top of the show, if you've got 14 or 15 solid premiums in the next couple of weeks, you still could outscore a team with 13 premiums, but 2 or 3 extra rookies at the back end. So again, Theo, if Melican at 170k gets you to your own goal, do it. Otherwise, I'm not sure. You're probably better off doing something else. Maybe your primo move, your Sheaves with 5. If you're looking for that value, making money that way, because again, 170k with Baker down, you're not getting massive cash. But if it gets you your own goal, gets you your premium want, then do it. But if you're others out there and it's not getting into that, then weigh it up.
Yeah, I know our good friend Tim Mitchell, his strategy this week is to not worry about rookies and just find cash by trading, Sicily to Himmelberg, or, we did it last week with Ben Keys, and, you talk about 5, it's the same sort of idea, and get your money that way. But, there will be people like Samuel looking to trade a Seamus Mitchell or Josh Weddle on their buy. Although Weddle, you could argue, might score a lot with Sicily out. But, what cheapies are out there if people need one? As I said, O'Sheen Mullen, we can scratch him. There has been some talk that Jack Buller might get a game for the Swans this week. He's a goal-kicking forward who they got in the mid-season draft from the Waffle, I think. You might know more about him, but always a risk, obviously, picking someone in their first game. But we've got Ryan Marich, who played his first game last week for West Coast, not here this week, unfortunately, so that doesn't really help. But you would imagine he'd keep his spot in his team, and he'll be back in round 15 after kicking a couple of goals in his first game. There's not a heap of others. I mean, Marcus Windhager's one of your boys. He's down to 175 around there after being the sub a few times. Played a full game last week, and I thought he actually looked all right, but he absolutely butchered it and scored about 40-something. But he might be a semi-decent option if he can keep his place in the team. But is there anyone else out there that I'm missing?
Well, we're talking Dev Robertson as well, 186k, break even of 25, scored 84 last week. Hopefully he stays in the side a little bit. Start of the year at 259k, some sub-affected games, a -1 against the Pies in round 4, his last senior appearance. He's worth considering. Not that much more as well from your Melican. So if you can get enough cash to make your premium upgrade, or build your cash enough that's going to allow you to make those couple of upgrades over the next 2 weeks, then maybe it is a Windhager or Robertson, given what they're going to give you on field. It's probably going to be more than Melican, but -39 break even. Melican is the lowest break even of any cash cow playing at the moment. So it works. Again, if it's going to get you to where you want to go, if Melican just say drops out the team or starts really struggling in terms of winning the ball when a few others come back into that Sydney side in round 16 or 17, then so be it. You're going to hopefully have him on your bench by then. So if you've got those premiums, if you completed the team because of the trade, then it's fine. But if you can also do those moves by going to Dev Robertson or Windhager, I'd probably like to do that. If we get some mid-season guys named tonight, you'd want to have a look at him, I guess. Although you talk about Buller, you talk about Arnold as well.
Yeah.
These guys are 102k. I guess you could argue that it's getting you that cash. You might get 1 or 2 weeks out of them. If they get dropped after that, it's the same argument.
We just need two.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't matter. You don't.
14 and 15.
You're probably not going to get these guys to then upgrade them or downgrade them.
No.
It's probably too late for that. So again, if you get 2 weeks out of them, you've got the cash from the downgrade this week, then maybe that's a success.
Yeah. Harry Arnold's another one to watch. You mentioned him at the Swans, another mature age defender in the mid-season draft. So 1 or 2K. Apparently he was all right in the VFL last week as well, so he might be a chance to come in. You just have to pray they keep their spot for one more game, and then probably doesn't matter too much after that. Another one who's, I don't think he's on the bubble technically because he played his third game last week, but his first two were as the sub. Played his first full game last week was Josh Fahey at the Giants.
Yes.
And I thought he looked all right. So he's only 126 grand. The problem is he's got the bye next week, so he's not going to play in round 15. He is a defence mid, which is handy. But they do have a few players coming back into GWS, so you'd have to watch the teams and make sure he holds. But we know he's been putting up huge numbers in the VFL.
Yeah, all he needed was an opportunity. I think he was started like a house on fire last week. The bulk of his points, I think, came in the first quarter and a half. So we know he can score quickly when he gets an opportunity. The hurts. We said we need him for 2 weeks. These guys, we're only going to get him for 1. So it's probably better options again to at least give you an extra next week, even though we've said it's all about your premiums.
A lot of most of these questions are about Sicily. There's a couple about Caleb Sarong. A few people were a little bit nervous. There was some photos I think that came out during the week of him maybe talking to some trainers or medical types over in Perth. He seems to be carrying some sort of a little leg niggle. Do you know any more about that?
Well, we heard Justin Longmuir last week say, quote, little issue for Sarong, because obviously dealing with something, limited training during the week. But again, at this stage of the year, heading into winter, middle of the season, your big guns aren't always training anyway. So we forget that in KFC SuperCoach. These guys don't need to trade every day of the week, especially if they're carrying something. I think teammate Luke Ryan came out on Perth radio last night, I believe, Wednesday night somewhere, and declared that Caleb Sarong was going to be okay to play. So Luke Ryan saying that is a good sign. There's no doubt he's carrying something, but for him to play after what Longmuir said last week, then they're probably just getting him through, and he probably looks okay. Still scored a KFC SuperCoach ton last week as well, playing probably under a bit of duress. So good sign he can push through. Not 100% fit, but it looks like he's going to play.
Yeah, I think if you've got him, fingers crossed he's still going to be okay. But if you were looking at someone to trade in, would that push him a bit further down the list behind, say, a Brayshaw type?
I think so. I think that's enough to push you in another direction. Just again, we say he's probably going to play, but who knows when it flares up, or they rest him or in the game or something. So yeah, I agree. It probably pushes you a little bit in another direction if you're weighing it up.
Yep. All right. Well, we better talk some captains for round 14. Only the 6 games, but it's Friday night. The footy is on, and your KFC Friday night feast is on its way. Score free delivery on your Friday night footy feast every Friday when ordering through the KFC app or kfc.com.au. It's game on, and of course, fans, a massive Thursday night game in Adelaide this week. So I'm sure you'll be stocking up on the KFC, and we'll be looking at a captain or vice captain option at the Adelaide Oval tonight.
Oh, I'll be stocking up on KFC. Don't worry about that. I might have to actually pop down here. I'll have to pop down to KFC after this, I reckon. Maybe a zinger box for lunch, because I've got no soup anymore. It's all over my bag. If you didn't hear the start of the show, it's been a bit of a disaster. But KFC does solve a lot of problems in life. So I think I'll rest on them again. VC and C, very good lot of options in the first couple of games. Zach Butters, if you got him tonight, probably have to go there. Tom Stewart is probably one I'll look at. VC Adelaide Oval has been very good this year, and he's scored well against Port in the past. Josh Dunkley on Friday night, the Lions and the Swans at the Gabba is someone I know. I've had a few people speak to me, and they've had him VC or C in the past couple of weeks, but one I haven't spoken about enough certainly is 5-round average is now 10 points more than any other player in the game. So Tom Stewart into Josh Dunkley, I don't mind. I'd like to VC Josh Dunkley on Friday night, but then again, I don't have Marcus Bontempelli, so there's not a lot of sure things given the buys after Friday night. If you do have Bont, maybe you're going Dunkley into Bont. I don't mind that conversation. But for me, I reckon at this point, Tom Stewart tonight at Adelaide Oval into Josh Dunkley, the Gabba on Friday night footy.
Yeah, like all of those. I mean, Josh Dunkley's last 5 scores, just looking them up here, 149, 103, 153, 146, 148. So,
Yep,
you'd
huge.
be pretty happy with that. The other one who I looked up, Bonting, I'll quickly pull the numbers up here because his scores against North Melbourne recently haven't been great. I don't know if there's anything really going on there. I think one of those games was the Good Friday game where Bevo played him at full forward.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe there's a sort of mitigating circumstances, but 102, 83, and 82 are his last 3 against North. I mean, surely you think he'll go pretty well this year. The one who has a fantastic record, if you happen to have him, he'd be a great pod. Another one that I was in when I was talking about that Zach Butters conversation earlier, that maybe if I make some money from the Sicily trade, I could maybe look at trying to get one of these guys. And it's Jack McRae, who I think last week he had 1 centre bounce and scored 120. So he just finds a way to score wherever he's playing. Obviously getting a bit more forward time this year, and now he's a DPP, which is great if you have him, and potentially could get him, but you'd have to wait till after round 15. And he's had his bye, but his last 2 against North, 153 and 138. So he loves playing the Kangaroos. So that's an option if you got him. The other one that I'm going to throw in, you talk about Dunkley, definitely agree with, we don't talk about him enough. And Sam's on the same page as me here, is Tim Taranto, averaging about 120, 130 in his last 5 games as well. Very rarely plays a bad one. So I think he's actually a pretty good backup captain. So maybe try a VC on a Dunkley, and if it doesn't come off, I think he could be safe for a 110, 120 at worst sort of thing against Victoria on Saturday night. So I really like the way Taranto's travelling. And I heard Daniel Hoyne say he's second on the Champion Data Brownlow tracker at the moment, just always in front of the umps. It's just a matter of whether they worry too much about some of his kicks that don't always go exactly in a straight line. But I don't know if that's bothered them too much in the past. He would be right in front of them a lot during the game. So anyway, we're not talking about the Brownlow here, but don't mind that as a shout. But yeah, I've loved what he's done in KFC SuperCoach and for the Tigers this year.
Yep, no, I like that. As you mentioned, a safer fullback option. He's showing he can go big, but again, even if he has a poor game, he's still probably having 10 tackles and 25 and still getting past 3 figures, even if he's not having a similar influence as he has. So, I do like that. And also anyone, the Bulldogs. You'd like to VC someone like McRae. So, again, it's last game of the round. A little bit more thought probably has to go into it. But plenty of options. I think, again, Tom Stewart for me tonight.
Yeah, John O'Neill mentions, which is true about the Saints mids. I don't think I'd back Jack Steele. He's obviously carrying something at the moment, but it's the sort of game Jack Sinclair could really dominate. But again, you'd probably prefer to VC him, given he's been a little bit up and down this year. The one play that we might have a little red flag on, talk about the Bulldogs, is Tim English, given the numbers that you did some research on what Todd Goldstein's doing to opposition rucks. And I don't know, does Timmy have the same superpowers as Kieran Briggs to break the 3 figures against Goldie?
Well, Kieran Briggs, now the highest scoring ruckman against Todd Goldstein and the Roos for the season. All the big names have struggled against him before last week. The Roos, I think, had given only 69 points on average per game to opposition ruckman. Was a whole 10 points less than the second-ranked Bombers. So tough going against Goldie and the Roos, but Kieran Briggs can do it. Tim English, disappointing last week, still scored well in the end. We know after a very slow start, but you'd think he'd want to hopefully bounce back. And as good as Goldie is, Tim English is something else around the ground. So again, I'm probably not going to go there for captain, but I wouldn't be surprised if he bounces back with a 130.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for watching. Good luck in a tricky bye round, and then we'll get into the really fun one, round 15 next week. James Sicily, I think there's still more questions there. The advice is hold if you can this week, and at least we'll know more after Monday, and we might not have to worry about it depending what happens at the appeals hearing. But if he does get rubbed out, then we can decide what to do then, and we'll have some more options whether we can trade him to a defender or a midfielder potentially, depending on who you've got in your team. And I think it's going to be a trade if he's out for 3 weeks or more, but we'll assess that next week. So thanks everybody for watching. Thanks Phantom for jumping on. We've got the Fantasy Freakos done a form guide, and all our usual great content is out on Code Sports and Advertiser and Herald Sun. So check all that out, and good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.